Shalom, miserable humans! As I promised, I have returned to rank more Winx Club voices from the different dubs. As I mentioned in my video ranking the different voices of the tricks, Winx Club has been dubbed by 6 different companies: 4Kids, Cinelume, Dubbing Brothers, Nickelodeon, DeviantArt, and 3Beep, none of which have ever gone to dub the entirety of the franchise. This time, I will be ranking the different voices of the specialists: Sky, Brandon, Riven, Timmy, Helia, and Nabu. I won't be including Roy and Nyx due to the fact that Roy has only been voiced by 1 actor, and Nyx has been voiced by 2 voice actors. And I'll just say right now, Nyx's Nick voice actor was good, and his DeviantArt/3Beep voice sucked. And just a heads up, unlike the tricks, not all of them will have 4Kids at the #1 spot, since while they all have great 4Kids voices, unlike the tricks, the specialists do have more to work with their voice catalog, though some more than others. Keep in mind that this is just my opinion, so don't be in about it. Now, without any further delay, let's dive right on in. Starting with the leader and the most boring member of the specialists, Sky. His voice catalog is affected by how bland of a character he is. It is no surprise to the fandom that he is considered a rather boring character, though I know some people who love him, like my fellow Winx Forever podcast Discord server mod, Tanya, who I have nothing but respect for. Anyway, this unfortunately places the job of making Sky likable solely on his voice actor. His best voices tend to show off some more personality and bring some charm to him, and no one exemplifies this better than my #1 choice, but we'll get there when we get there. Unfortunately, the same can't be said for what is by far his worst voice, Billy Bob Thompson of the DeviantArt/3Beep dub. He sounds so whiny and bratty with a slightly nasally tone and weird inflections.
So we can stay together for a while. Go ahead! I'm leaving!
It's especially cringy in Season 7 before he and the other specialists ended up looking like they're 10 years old in Season 8. He sounds like a dude bro surfer dude. There's just nothing appealing about it, and he just exemplifies everything people tend to hate and criticize about the character, which is made worse by the flanderization of his character in the later seasons. Not faring much better is Sky's first Dubbing Brothers voice, Christopher Corey Smith, who is just a textbook definition of an unmemorable, bland, and boring hero.
Please, don't cry. Even though you are still beautiful with those tears in your eyes.
Absolutely a snore fest with no personality, charm, or anything that makes him stand out. In fact, people often criticize this dub for making the wings sound too much alike, myself included, but that issue is actually amplified with the specialists to the point where they all sound exactly alike, to the point where I can't tell who's saying what unless I see their face. He's at least not as annoying as Billy, but his performance is as boring as a sea slug race. Faring better is Sky's second Dubbing Brothers voice he had in the 3rd movie, Joseph Miller. While it's not awful like Billy or Christopher, he's really nothing special and is pretty much bland and unmemorable.
Oh, please. You know my title as king is only an honorary one, but sometimes I have duties that can't be ignored.
He honestly sounds like a poor man's version of Matt Shively from the Nick dub, but without any of the charm. He's one of the more decent voices from the dub, but that's not saying much. Well, not bad, it's not good, and sounds like a generic love interest with very little character. Now we've finally gone to a decent Sky voice, Danny Bruce of the Cinelume dub. I honestly really like the sound of his voice, as it does give Sky a more unique and memorable sound with his higher pitch, raspy, and kind of mellow sound. However, what he struggles with is his rather stiff line delivery.
A round trip to Cloud Tower will take a while. We'd better get a move on. Anyway, why put off till tomorrow what you can do today?
While it's not bad and it's not horrendous like most of the voices in this dub, you can tell he's not really given much room to add much to the character, since the Cinelume's translation leaves little room for creativity. I blame this more on his direction, since in Season 4, when they got a different director, his performance got stronger.
That's true, so maybe we better not speak.
While he doesn't make Sky likable and charming, you can tell that there is potential there. He just needs to be given better direction. If his delivery was better, he'd actually be my second favorite Sky voice, because I do love the tone of his voice. We've finally come to Sky's good voices, Matt Shively of the Nick dub. It's sad that there are only 2, but those are just the clans we've been dealt. His inflections and tone are just really charming and cute. He's almost like a puppy.
I was almost there when I got Stella's invite, so I turned around. Bloom, I would never miss a chance to take you to a princess ball.
Granted, he still doesn't make Sky likable given the terrible script from the Nick dub, but Matt has a lot of charm. I love when he has his more goofy moments as well as his romantic moments with Bloom. I also find him believable as a down-to-earth guy, but also someone I can take seriously as a legit leader. Matt definitely has a likability to him, so it's a shame that he was given a terrible script to work with. However, no one can beat Sky's only real and true voice, Dan Green of the 4Kids dub. Do I even need to explain this? Dan Green just is Sky. I can't imagine any voice for Sky but him.
Brave or not, the troll still got away. There was one canoe trip, but there was no canoodling. Trust me. Your heart is full of light, Bloom. Your heart is so pure and good that it saved me. I got Stella's invitation mid-flight and turned around. I wouldn't miss a chance to take you to a princess ball for anything in the world, Bloom. You sure you can handle it, Schnookums? Yeah, but we're sophomores and we should have been able to handle it. This was our first real assignment and we messed it up. You have to break free! You have to come back! Because I love you.
His voice is by far the most memorable. I mean, he's Yugi from Yu-Gi-Oh! For Poseidon's sake, and a voice acting legend. He has such an instant and effortless likability that the other voices on this list could only dare to dream of achieving. 4Kids Sky is the only Sky I actually like, and that's because of Dan Green's incredible performance, who just brings instant charm to any character he voices. He's charming, brave, likable, funny at times, and just everything you need in a character like Sky. I can't imagine anyone being more perfect or coming anywhere near his level. Brandon fares slightly better than Sky in his collection of voices. His best voices tend to show off his heroic and romantic side, but also show off his sense of humor as the class clown of the group. While Brandon's race has always been a subject of debate in the fandom, he has been voiced solely by white men, so he debatably has never been voiced by someone who matches his racial background. What is that racial background? Again, it's very ambiguous. Most say he's Latino or Hispanic. Some say he's just a white boy with a tan, which is the most boring and basic option, and some say he's Southeast Asian. I personally say he's Middle Eastern, but that's off topic. At the very bottom of the list is Jake Pack of the DeviantArt/3boot dub, who honestly has the worst voice out of all the specialists in that dub. I mean, why does he sound like a man in his 40s or 50s?
Still angry with Bloom? Come on, come with us. I'm sure you'll clear it up.
This is on the same awful levels as Enigma Turn as Musa and Stormy from the Cineloom dub. So freaking old sounding, which ends up getting worse in Season 8 where he looks like a little boy that hasn't hit puberty yet. It already didn't suit him, but Season 8's design made it worse.
Yes, bro. That crazy girl who won't give up on you?
Make it go away, I'm through talking about how awful this is. Much better, but still not good, is his dubbing brother's voice. First of all, truth be told, I have no idea who voices him and I can't find anything about it online. I can't find this info for half of the specialists. I mean, they couldn't freaking give credit to the voices of major characters like these, whatever. Either way, he has the same issues as Christopher Corey Smith as Sky. Indistinguishable, boring, bland, and lacking in personality.
We have no idea what to expect when we reach Abra, but we do know that you girls will be in a lot more danger without your powers.
Yeah, get used to me saying this about all the specialist dubbing brothers' voices because they all sound the same and bore the Tartarus out of me. Faring much better is Mark Hausa of the Cineloom dub. Mark does a pretty decent job at showing off Brandon's jokester nature while also sounding romantic.
Yoshinoya wants the throne, so every chance he gets, he sends his ninjas after us.
Its delivery can be a bit stiff, but it's not to the point where it distracts too much. So while it's nothing special, it's a good voice that gets better in Season 4.
It's action you're looking for. Do me a favor. Go get me a glass of orange juice.
Now we get to the truly great Brandon voices, starting with Adam Gregory of the Nick dub. Again, sad that there's only two, but that's just the way the coral crumbles. But honestly, Adam does a really great job at portraying Brandon's effortless charm while also being a jokester. He's especially strong during the scene where he lets Stella know how much he loves her when she's trying to turn back into her true form in Season 3 after she'd been turned into an ugly monster.
Me? Run away? Why?
You are a beautiful person inside and out. Why wouldn't I stay?
Honestly, he's just more amazing and full of so much charm. He's not #1 because I don't feel like his voice is as memorable as my #1 choice, but he's still a incredible voice for Brandon. Adam Gregory really puts his all into his performance as Brandon. However, he just can't beat my #1 choice. And that is clearly Greg Abbey of the 4Kids dub. I mean, he just by far gives the most memorable performance of the character.
Dude, one summer at a swashbuckler camp doesn't mean you can go solo on a troll. I rest my case. Stella, I loved you before, and I still love you now. Sure, Pete was the one who told me all about your middle school nickname. Your hair was so frizzy, they called you Frizztella.
I love how he has a very jock, low-key frat boy sound to his voice, but it's not too cartoony to the point where I can't take his performance seriously. It fits with his very jokester personality, but also allows him to be romantic and heroic. I love how he is both chilled and yet upbeat at the same time. I can understand why people would prefer Adam Gregory's performance, but Greg Abbey's performance is just much more memorable, and that's something that is important with voice acting. Plus, he was also the voice of Tristan from Yu-Gi-Oh!, so that explains why he's so good as Brandon, the class clown of the group. Out of all of the specialists, Riven has the weakest collection of voices. How fitting considering he's by far my least favorite specialist. Part of this issue is that he tends to get voice actors that aren't really convincing as bad boys, and don't really give much depth to their performance other than him being his best voices are the ones that come off as convincing as a bad boy, while also trying to add what little depth you can to such a horribly written character, and have a little bit of a raspiness to them to add to his hot-headed nature. But let's get the worst of the bunch out of the way, Jesse Mocharian of the 3-Beep dub. Tartarus, I hope I pronounced that name right. Either way, his performance is just so robotic and devoid of life.
I just want you to know that I'll always be there when you need me.
While he was gone, did he go through that portal that drained Tekna of her emotions when they were trying to get the water stars? So dull, lacking in emotions, and no personality. He's not helped by the trash script of Season 8, but this sounds like a bad fan dub from YouTube. Not faring that much better is Steve Staley of the Dubbing Brothers dub. Same issues as the other specialists, dull, boring, and indistinguishable.
I thought I came here for a great party, not to just stand around here being laughed at.
His voice isn't completely lacking in personality like the others, but that one personality trait is just that he is angry all the time. Granted, a lot of that is from how the script kind of oversimplifies the characters, but it's not helping him. So yeah, his one personality trait is that he is angry, but his voice is still unrecognizable. Mitchell Rothpan of the Cinnaloon dub is definitely better, but that's not saying much. I mean, why does he low-key sound like some kind of corny, lame, jock popular guy from California? I keep expecting him to challenge someone to a surf-off or a dance-off or something.
It means that in a little bit, I'll be the one crossing the finish line first, that's all. And you'll be all standing there and watching me win.
I just can't take him seriously, and he is one of the few voices from this dub that doesn't improve in Season 4. He just stays this mediocre and lackluster at best performance. Nothing about him is memorable. He's not even memorable in how dumb he sounds. I can't take him seriously as a bad boy at all. We finally get to a good voice with Sam Riegel of the Nick dub. Yeah, sadly there are only two, but I did say that his collection of voices was among the worst of the specialists, so let's just be glad there isn't only one good voice. Honestly, Sam does a great job of portraying Riven as a bad boy with a temper and an ego the size of the magical dimension.
As a specialist and as your boyfriend. But right now, I'm just not capable of doing either one of those things.
He even manages to show off some of Riven's low-key jokester nature, and what little depth he was given, very well. He can even come off as sincere at times, and almost like someone who is trying to do better. Although that is ruined by the terrible writing of Riven's character. And that's not an issue that is solely of the later seasons, because he was always a trash character. But Sam almost makes you believe that he might do better this time, because he's just that good. However, no no one can beat the best voice that Riven has ever had. Michael Sinter-Nicholas of the 4Kids dub. Do I even need to explain why this is great? Michael Sinter-Nicholas is Riven, to the point where I actually regret not keeping him as the voice of Riven in my recast videos.
You are really cute when you're angry, you know that? I dig girls who play hard to get.
Oh, so you believe her and not me?
I didn't say that, Riven.
You're all in on this, aren't you?
I won! Looks like you guys are gonna have to do all my chores this week. Yeah!
He has all the great qualities of Sam Riegel, but took them to new levels of pure perfection. Not to mention his voice is a lot raspier, which suits his hot-headed, reckless, and rebellious nature. He is by far the best voice Riven has ever had, and while I still stand by that Will Friedle would make a great Riven, I do think I should have kept Michael as the voice of Riven, because this voice just fits him like a glove. Michael Sinter-Nicholas being Riven's voice was a perfect match, which is more than I can say for Musa and Riven's trash relationship. My girl deserved better. Out of all of the specialists, Timmy by far has the best collection of voices. He doesn't have a single bad voice in any dub at all, which is an impressive accomplishment given the many flaws of most of these dubs. It could be because of how he is a more recognizable archetype with him being the nerd of the group. Thankfully, this hasn't led to him being too flanderized for the most part. The best of his voices tend to show off his awkwardness and his struggle to embrace his emotions more. Granted, his struggle with emotions wasn't on the same level as Techna, but still. At the bottom of the list is Daryl Gabu of the Dubbing Brothers dub, and I just know I butchered that pronunciation. Honestly, it's not a bad voice, and it does sound like a voice that would come out of a character like Timmy, more so in Magical Adventure.
Are we ready? Thank goodness you don't have any more parents, Bloom. We'd be here all day. Huh?
It has awkwardness and logic, but also some emotion. However, it's nothing special, and while it's the only decent specialist voice, that's not saying much. Still a fairly good voice. Up next is Wayne Grayson of the DuArt/3Beep dub, the only good specialist voice from that dub.
I don't think the guest courtesy update loaded properly.
It kind of reminds me of Charlie Schlatter of the Nick dub, which we will get to later. It doesn't have the same qualities due to the fact that he kind of sounds like the recording equipment for him was kind of muffled, but honestly, he has a good sound to him that works for this endearing nerd. However, it's not that memorable compared to the others. Next we have Michael Yarmish of the Cinelume dub. Honestly, I'm kind of surprised how good this voice is, given how awful the voices and performances tend to be from this dub.
Only subspatial interference could delay the wave energy transmission, but the percentages are so low that...
It's awkward, dorky, logical, but also has emotions. He really puts a lot of effort into his performance, despite the awful direction these actors were given. But honestly, it's just not as memorable as the others. It's still pretty memorable and recognizable, but just not as much as my top two. It's definitely a great voice though. I also learned that this was actually the original voice of Arthur from, well, Arthur. At second place is Sebastian Arcelis of the 4Kids dub. It feels weird not having a 4Kids voice at number 1, but when a voice is genuinely better, I admit it. Honestly, this is a voice that I grew up with, so I kind of have a bias, but I also think Sebastian does a more amazing job showing how awkward Timmy is.
Even though I know my jokes are never funny, and I also love the freckles on her ankles. All 34 of them.
I do admit that his voice is a bit cartoony and can make him come off as a bit stereotypically nerdy, but there are people with voices like that, so it's not unrealistic. It also really helps him with how shy and awkward he is around Techna and trying to express more of his feelings for her and how he can be socially inept. He was my favorite Timmy for so long, but I recently had to admit that there is a better voice for Timmy. And that is Charlie Schlatter of the Nick dub. Honestly, just listen to this voice. It's definitely the best voice Timmy has ever had.
I love that she laughs at all my jokes, even though I know my jokes are never that funny.
I've been wanting to talk to you, but yeah, I guess I should have thought of something to say before I called.
All right. I almost forgot to look at the menu.
I just love how he sounds awkward but sincere at the same time. There's such a genuine quality to his voice that makes his nerdiness feel the most organic out of all of his voices. Plus, I love the slight raspiness to his voice that adds to his nerdy sound without having it sound too over the top. Honestly, the only voice that'd be more perfect for Timmy is Jason Marsden. I know Charlie Schlatter as the voice of Cameron from Bratz, and while his voice doesn't sound different from that role, it does show how talented Charlie partly is with how I know him better as a more cool skater boy, but I can also believe him as this awkward nerd. I just love it. Helia has one of the better collection of voices of the specialists. His best voices tend to sound very mellow and calm, but also have a bit of mystery to them. Unfortunately, despite the fact that he is clearly East Asian coded, Helia has never been voiced by an actor that is East Asian. My personal fan casting for him is Stephen Young, but that's beside the point. At the very bottom is Michael Licio Jr. of the DeviantArt/3beep dubs. His problem is a very similar one to Brittany Paisley as Flora, where they exaggerated the voice to the point where the character is flanderized, which isn't helped by the flanderization of the writing, but still.
Calm down, Flora. Amarok didn't do anything wrong. He was just playing.
He sounds very overly doting and kind of comes off like he's confused. He pretty much is giving low-key stoner vibes. He kind of gives the same vibes as Luke from Mom, and that's not a good thing. I mean, I adore the show Mom, but being Luke isn't a good thing, though it's better than being a Violet. Either way, while it's one of the better specialist voices from the DeviantArt/3beep dubs, and while not truly awful, it's still pretty bad. Next up is, again, an unknown from the Dubbing Brothers dub. Yeah, there's no information on who voiced him, and everything I've said about the other specialists in this dub applies here.
I thought about bringing you a flower, but there's no flower that can compare to its beautiful guardian.
Dull, boring, indistinguishable, and lacking in personality. Nothing more to say, moving on. Now we've gone to the good voices, starting with Martin Wattier of the Cinelum dub. One of the few cases of the Cinelum dub actually having a good performance. I love how he has an air of mystery to him while also being very mellow.
Nothing. Despite its definition, fewer words have more meaning.
His energy is very low-key, but it doesn't feel like he's foaming it in like a lot of the voices from the Cinelum dub do. It goes with his very chilled and laid-back attitude. It's also nice how he has a slightly lower pitch to his voice. While it's not my top favorite Helia voice, Martin definitely did a good job as Helia. At the number 2 spot is the voice I grew up with, Mark Dereesen of the 4Kids dub. I mean, this voice is pretty much what you'd expect a sensitive, artsy person to sound like, especially one that gave hippie vibes.
It means this letter's for the one who has your heart? Well, I have to tell you, whoever's getting this letter is really a very lucky guy.
His performance is very similar to Martin, but feels more polished. Not to mention, there's a softness to his voice that I do love for the character, and helps him and the 4Kids version of Flora feel more like they were made for each other, given how soft her voice is. Plus, the softness of his voice helps him stand out amongst the other specialists. However, the number 1 choice for me is David Faustino of the Nick dub. I mean, I know him best as the hot-headed, brooding Mako from The Legend of Korra, but I find it easy to buy him as this chilled and sensitive guy.
Nobody's ever said the bird's wing looks like flowers. Flora, you are the only one in my heart. You're the only one I love. You never gave up on me, Flora. You never lost hope.
His voice is a bit raspy, which is typically something you wouldn't associate with a character like Helia, but it's not so raspy to where you'd associate him as an angry character. Plus, I feel like the raspiness adds to him as a very mellow and relaxed person with a very soothing sounding voice. It helps to give the soft little sponge an edge because, despite being a pacifist, he isn't someone who will just take something lying down. Much like Flora, he's kind and sweet, but has his limits, which is why they are perfect together. But yeah, David Faustino captures Helia's aloofness and sensitivity, but also that the character has a backbone. Not to mention that David can play 2 very opposite characters like Helia and Mako very convincingly is impressive, and shows he has range. Nabu has one of the weaker collections of voices, and it's not just because he doesn't have as many voices as the others, due to the absolute of him being killed off in Season 4. But I guess he was at least spared the possibility of a horrendous voice from the DeviantArt/3beep dub. His voice actors tend to be stiff and dull, which doesn't suit the character, who is more charismatic and lively. While I would only describe one as truly bad, most of his voices tend to be pretty Sadly, much like Helia, Nabu has never been voiced by an actor that matched his racial background, which is South Asian, specifically Indian. I have personally fan-casted Sandhill Rema Murphy as the voice of Nabu, but again, that's beside the point. At the bottom is, again, an unknown actor from the Dubbing Brothers dub, who is in charge of crediting the actors in this dub, but either way, this is his only bad voice, accompanied by some heinous whitewashing.
I guess we've been busy saving universes. There's only one true Nabu!
Same issues as the other specialists, save for Timmy. Generic, boring, dull, lacking in personality, and sounds just like the other specialists too, where I can't tell which voice is whose unless I hear the voice come out of their mouth. And we only get to hear him speak in Magical Adventure since Secret of the Lost Kingdom forgot that my boy existed until the very end, which... why? Faring better is Todd Fennell of the Cineloom dub. He's not a bad voice, but he's not good due to how he sounds pretty lifeless and dull.
You know, I thought you were someone I knew. I'm really sorry. I didn't really mean to be spying.
He gets better in Season 4, but it's still nothing all that special. Runner-up is Will Blagrove of the Nick dub. He fares slightly better than Todd, but he also struggles with his delivery at times.
You know, last time we met, I never did get the chance to thank you for saving me. So thank you.
It's by no means a bad performance, and I honestly love how he has a slight accent that helps him stand out and sound more unique. He definitely captures Nabu's more mellow and chilled attitude. I love how his voice is slightly deep because it helps him stand out among the specialists. It's still definitely the weakest performance of the specialist voices from the Nick dub, due to the line delivery being kind of dull, which is surprising because the actor is actually very talented, but it's still kind of lackluster in my opinion. At the #1 spot is Matt Charles of the 4Kids dub. Honestly, he is by far the best and only good voice that Nabu has ever had, which is sad. But what can you do? He feels like the most polished version of the character and doesn't have any issues with his emotions like the others do.
I didn't get to introduce myself earlier. The name's Ophir, and I'm here to help you girls out.
I grew up on a remote island where there were no friends for me to play with. So instead, I spent a lot of time learning battle skills from the local security guys.
Hey, look at this face. Does this face look like it would lie?
His performance feels the most organic and less stiff due to the fact that the voice directors seem to actually know what they were doing. He sadly isn't given as much to work with as the other voice actors due to the fact that the 4Kids dub wasn't able to dub Season 4. Though that also means that we can imagine in the 4Kids universe, Nabu never died. No, I will never let that go. But anyways, Matt's performance is very charismatic, unlike Nabu's other voice actors, and shows off both Nabu's rational thinking and playful nature. I know him mainly as Jaden Yugi from Yu-Gi-Oh! GX, which is a more comedic character, so I'm impressed with his versatility. So yeah, this is his only good voice. It shouldn't be a surprise that most of the voices in the #1 spot are the 4Kids voices, since as established in my Tricks video, the 4Kids voice actors and voice directors clearly care about what they work on. Granted, the fault usually lies in the voice directors and the source material, more so than the actors, especially when the weaker performances have actors that have done better in other projects. It's sad that some people just don't care about making sure that every performance is perfect, and honestly, what were some of the voice directors thinking with some of the direction they gave these voice actors? Also, for some reason, the male voices aren't as much fun to talk about as the female voices. So don't worry, I'll have more to say about the Winx when I rank their voices. Anyway, those were my rankings for the voices of the specialists. What did you guys think? Did you agree with any of my rankings? What are your rankings? Let me know in the comments below. Please like, share, comment, and subscribe if you haven't already. You can also check me out on my other social media accounts in the links below. I'm the Wicked Merman from Under the See ya!